Good evening and welcome back. And we're going to talk about some classics, guys. We're going to talk about the Baroque era, right after the Renaissance period. Well, I'm going to do my best to be as informative as I can without getting lost in detail. That's what I'm going to do for you today. So we're going to talk about the Baroque era and the rise of opera, the ascent of opera. Yeah, let's talk about it. So this was right after the Renaissance era. And music had gotten quite proliferous, and one might say gratuitous, and I believe, that need for not less in quantity, but let's say maybe less in quality. And that was maybe the thoughts towards the music at time, and it had gotten quite superfluous. Continuing on, I believe it was Jacopo Pelli, was it? That got quite influenced by a singing style called monody. Monodic style. Monody, yeah, I hope that's the right word. Now, Jacopo Pelli, he was influenced by the singing style, I said, monody, where it would be more of a walking bass line, basso continuo, if you will. And with this sort of singing style, it left more space for the voice and the text and emotion and he was also convinced that the Greeks would tell their stories through singing and musical stylings, like the way the music is written to be modeled after speech. Interesting. Not sure how he made that leap, but we're glad he did, aren't we? So he was quite influenced by melodic styling and speech through song, storytelling through song, and so I guess this would be the catalyst for opera. Paired with the Greek mythology, the stories, and what going to be like a whole cultural thing, with like opera houses and the ballets and the intermedies, and all those things. But yeah, so I guess this would be, I don't know, the birth of opera, or maybe not the birth, like the inception of what was to become opera. No, for like a little speaking on the background, so opera literally translates to work. I'm not really sure if it means like maybe a work of art or physical toil and labor, but I mean I guess it does make sense either way contextually, because work is work, whether it's singing or chopping wood or something. So with opera, it's basically like a soap opera, except with ridiculous levels of musical talent and discipline. Yeah, so you can expect drama, expect quite some salacious things, like they keep it interesting, like you get all the juicy stuff. A good story, you get a little twist in there, you get a little love it, except with like a high trill to E flat. You get music, you get the vocals, like I tell you get orchestra. I believe for the time it was maybe like 30 or 40 people, not like 250 like we have now. Costumes, you already know the stereotypical look. I don't appreciate it, but you know the stereotypical look. I think nowadays it's quite more elegant. It's quite more beautiful and flattering. But you know, whatever. I'm biased. Maybe opera was always, meant to be, you know, and, people at the time they were, requesting, different kind of music, demanding it, like give the people what they want. Am I right? And the people wanted opera, or they didn't know they wanted it, but they got it, So, and tons of famous people, have written operas. George Frederick Handel, Amadeus Mozart, Wagner, Purcell, tons of great composers, yeah. Oh, and one term detail I forgot: the Florentine camerata. That term was, for like musicians and the likes that used to come together and, kind of like discuss, music, the status of music, what's going on, We have our likes or dislikes, that type of thing, like the critics, except they maybe had credibility and stuff. But, yes, so the Florentine camerata. So, these established musicians and writers and artists and, stuff like that, they'd come together, and clink champagne and have heated discussions about the status of the arts, I guess is what I would imagine in my head. Now, the first, opera, the first known by Jacopo Pelli, as we said earlier, was called Daphne. But no, there are no facts, there are no receipts, and there are no papers. So I guess that honor goes on to Claudio Monteverdi, who wrote L'Orfeo. Yeah, that happened. So as far as time, we're talking about the early 1600s for the Baroque era. And I believe the monodic stylings would be like maybe slightly over a decade earlier. Music is ever changing by the decade, But yeah, so early at the beginning of the Baroque era, around the 1600s, it really like spread across Europe, like in France, Germany, Spain, even to Russia. In addition to L'Orfeo, Monteverdi wrote The Coronation of Poppaea and The Return of Ulysses. I believe his life time lasted 1567 to 1643. And his style was kind of like, tragedy and comedy, like to mix it too, which some people don't like, the bougie people, the silver spoon in the mouth people with all the money, sort of. And I guess the younger people, the more non-traditional people, I don't think they minded it. The crassness, bit of macabre, and some humor, because hey, I think aristocrats were maybe the boomers of their time, Oh man, nothing really changes, huh? So because of this, split, in audience, I guess, naturally, opera took up different versions, different forms, different categories. Kind of like the movies. You got horror, you got comedy, family movies, you got, adult movies. You have, I guess the same would apply for opera. We have opera seria, which is get serious. Opera buffa, which is funny. Now opera seria, I don't know. I guess the level of vocal technicality that you'd have to possess, it really is like in the name. Like, this is serious opera. Like, this is for the big dogs. There's no joke about this. This is work. This is dedication. This is practice. And that's serious opera. I think that's what the opera cats liked. Not to say but anyways, let's go on to explain opera buffa, which I imagine is more not vocally as challenging as to the degree as opera seria would be, and just much more fun music and just like fun content, like a little less highbrow, like maybe more relatable and more down to earth. Now, much like music from the Renaissance period, opera spread across Europe, as I did say previously, and it takes different forms as the music can like get a unique interaction with those cultures. I believe different types of opera come about. I know France usually, even though a lot of operas work in Italian text, France did their own thing, whereas some other composers would like stick to Italian text. Also should mention that castratas were quite popular at the time, quite popular. As I imagine their voice type would be quite unique, and their talents would be quite unique, and the sacrifice is quite unique for that level of pitch and frequency. So they were quite popular at the time, like rock stars. Now, as opera buffa, opera seria got more showy, I guess, would be like the Olympic version of who can sing the best, just showing off a lot of that vocal technique. And it was Christoph Willibald Gluck that kind of came about with a more simpler style, back to the basics. Simple music can be beautiful as well. So it was definitely a different direction from the more obscure way the more serious opera was going. It was getting, I guess, to be a bit much for him. And he was a composer of Orfeo ed Eurydice. Yes. And this style actually influenced later on in the classical era Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. He himself did compose quite a few serious operas, but I think the more beloved ones were opera buffa. Opera buffa. Buffa. Your pick. Opera buffas had mandatory happy endings. Love stories, with a few hurdles. Maybe some double, triple entendres in there, a little jabby rib here, good time. It's a good time. Most famous being The Marriage of Figaro and Don Giovanni. So as you can see, opera had its reach, whatever form it was, and was ever evolving, and at the time, quite popular, influenced a lot of the culture and cemented itself in a lot of cultures by ways of, even like the buildings that they built. Like there were opera houses like all over. And I believe the first one was in, I want to say Venice. Yeah, first opera house, or known of anyways. You know, France had their own stylings. You know, um, the Germans had their Singspiel, Zing Zingspiel, yeah, which was their own form of opera, which was a little more light. Um, there was dialogue, you know, and it was quite popular and really influential, beautiful music. Singspiel, obviously, um, the goat, the greatest of all time, would be Mozart, household name. There was some Beethoven in there, some Schubert, Wagner, yeah, but you know, Mozart. Now over in France, I guess we'd have famous composer Jean Baptiste Lully, and while they did not um, write their operas in Italian, or they didn't like Italian operas, something shady. You know, they did have beautiful opera as well, and you know, Lully was quite famous for his works. I guess the features of this would be visually a spectacle. It would be big choruses, you know, dances, you know, stuff like that. Ballet, yeah. And of course, there were some differences, you know, between all the opera buffers and opera series of each. For instance, it would be opera comique, and definitely similarities between the German Singspiel, but maybe not quite as many happy endings, you know. But that will be all for this evening. Thank you for joining me with Opera Talks. Thank you for joining me with Opera Talks in the evening with Floyd Perkins. All right, have a good night.